Okay, Stephen, that's just turned 4 o'clock there. Now, if you want to do the summons of notice of summons and take the roll, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting, Business Culture, to be held remotely Tuesday, the 20th of July at 4 p.m. If I take the roll, so Councillor Jason Barr.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Lillian Snowy Barr. Councillor Shauna Cusack.
Shauna is running late, Stephen, but she'll try to get here as soon as she can.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Morris Devaney.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Gary Donnelly.
Rancho.
Councillor Rory Farrell.
Here.
Alderman Darren Guy.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Sean Harkin.
Thanks.
Councillor Conor Heaney.
Sure, Steve.
Councillor Patricia Lowe. Councillor Kieran Maguire. And Alderman David Ramsey.
Here, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, it just leaves us on to the statement of remote meetings. Just like to remind everyone who is in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via the Council YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in this meeting, you're consenting to be filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those available to the public. The copy of the Council privacy notice can be found on the Council website. The next item of business, item 4, is a declaration of members' interests. If members want to indicate any interest now or do so during the course of the meeting, feel free now. Okay. Next item is chairperson's business. I haven't been notified by any members of any issues that they want to raise, and I don't intend to raise on the chairperson's business, so that concludes that item fairly swiftly. Item 6 is the matters arising from the open minutes of Tuesday, the 15th of June, 2001. So if we can take, for accuracy, pages 1 to 12. If there are any issues of accuracy, indicate now, please, in the chat box. Alderman Guy. Go ahead, Alderman Guy.
Just to bring up a matter, in matters arising for BC 111/21, the tourism recovery. I've been, and it's in regards to the new Walls Alive app. I've been contacted by a local tour guide who has spent a lot of money, especially when not earning during lockdown, to produce audio tours as an alternative form of local tour guide in our city. After the release of the Free Walls app, or Free Walls Alive app, he had a call to say that a group was cancelling as they could not get the information, as they could now get the information for free through the new app. Ironically, the council encouraged this tour guide to sign up to a family-friendly tour initiative, and then the booking cancelled. Local tour guides pay a membership subscription to visit Derry to benefit from their support of around £180 per annum. That was reduced this year, obviously, with COVID recovery to £148, and there was no charge last year due to lockdown. Could I ask officers if it would maybe be an idea if council, along with Visit Derry, could monitor any further cancellations? or sorry about that, or how the app has possibly affected the uptake of guided tours around the city centre in the coming months. Perhaps adding a small fee to the Walls Alive app could help reduce the membership of local tour guides if it is going to affect their business. Thank you, Chair.
Katie, you're indicating, do you want to respond there?
Yeah, I'm happy to come in. The tour guide in question has been in touch with Visit Derry and ourselves, and we've offered to meet them. So if you're happy enough, I think we will do that and look at where the issues. It shouldn't be affecting tour guides, and if it is, there's probably something that we can do in relation to the communication about the facilities that are available on the app. So we're more than happy. I mean, we are aware of the issue, and we're trying to get a meeting with the particular tour guide in question. But I know he's been in touch with yourself, Alderman Gay, and probably a number of other members as well. So we'll keep you all up to date as those discussions proceed. But it shouldn't be affecting their business, and if it is, it's something that we need to look at. We're happy to do that.
Okay, thank you, Aileen. We're now moving on, even though Alderman Gay did raise a matter arising. We're moving on to matters arising now. Just let that go. Is there any other matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting? In that case, can I have a proposer and seconder, please?
Chair.
Alderman Devaney.
Seconded then. Alderman Guy.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us on to item 7, which is the Labour Market Partnership Action Plan. I think Kevin is presenting this.
Yeah, that's me. Thanks very much, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to update you on progress in relation to the work around the Derry City and Strabane District Council interim Labour Market Partnership, and to seek your approval on a draft action plan for 21-22. Members will be aware that at a previous Business and Culture Committee, we brought forward a paper outlining the direction of travel that DFC had been working on with the 11 councils in relation to labour market partnerships. The aim of these interim labour market partnership is to improve employability outcomes and labour market conditions locally by working through coordinated, collaborative, multi-agency partnerships. Essentially, a more localized delivery mechanism in relation to co-commissioning of employability interventions. So obviously, members had agreed that we would commence or continue to work with DFC on the development of the LMP, and in fact to work on the establishment of an interim LMP, which was the existing Education and Skills Delivery Partnership. Officers focused on a number of reasons for this in relation to using the ESDP. Firstly, to facilitate a review of the existing structures, pending consideration of city deal governance and how this might impact on those structures. And secondly, given the time frame that we had been given for drawing up an LMP action plan, seeking approval, obtaining a letter of offer, and maximising spend in this transition year, it was felt our best option was to progress quickly, was to utilise an existing structure and expand the membership to include the Jobs and Benefits Office and the community and voluntary sector. In relation to the action plan, once that has been approved by DFC and upon receipt of the letter of offer, establishing the new LMP will then commence the long-term one, and will be supported by its own secretariat, funded through DFC budget allocation itself. DFC have been quite prescriptive in terms of the guidelines that they've set out and the templates that they've asked the 11 councils to use in relation to the action plan. You'll see that in the appendices. One of the areas that we needed to focus on from a local perspective was to provide an analysis of statistical intelligence. The focus of this was around looking at the underlying causes of employability and labour market issues locally. Issues such as deprivation, poverty, health, unemployment, and education inequalities, as obviously as well as social and economic challenges. The 3 strategic priorities and the action plan have been provided by DFC, and as I said, on the action plan template with the themes and activities to be undertaken under priority 2 there. So the headlines are within the report in relation to the statistical analysis in terms of the key areas of assisting citizens and the training employment, looking at the fit and welfare work 40 and above, focusing on young people, clearly given the fact that they have been, we've witnessed the steepest decline in employment in 16 to 24-year-olds as a result of the pandemic. Lifelong learning, women in the workforce. As I said, the action plan is included within the report, as well as the statistical analysis. In terms of the action plan, what we try to do is align it with the programme for government, our own strategic growth plan, the local growth partnerships plans, and the Northern Ireland Skills Strategy. The action plan has been reviewed and agreed by the membership of the Education and Skills Delivery Partnership, which includes reps from the post-primary sector, Northwest Regional College, Ulster University, the community and voluntary sector, the Jobs and Benefits Office, Invest, DFC, DFE, the Education Authority, and employers across the key sectors identified within the economic strategy for the council area. It's also been informed by the work of the subgroups that has been ongoing over the last number of years and are detailed within section 3.4. So in terms of the finances, and one of the issues that was raised at the prior committee was around budget. So existing staff resources have been used to date to work the plan up and to work with DFC, but initial indications suggest that DFC and DFE will provide a financial contribution of about 777,000 per annum. This will include 20% for administration and staffing to carry out the agreed actions and activities as set out in the plan. We are in the process of considering the commensurate level of support for each of the strategic priorities and individual themes identified from the overall budget, which will also further quantify our outcomes-based performance indicators before we go out to procurement across the set of actions. Members will also be aware that Council is already committed to a significant investment in education and skills programmes. You will be aware that on an annual basis, we match fund the current ESF projects to the value of about 200k, and then we have a smaller budget within which we do deliver specific interventions. So the recommendations are that members approve the action plan for submission to DFC, and that members agree that upon receipt of letter of offer from DFC, the process of moving from the interim LMP to a new LMP can commence.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Just before I bring in some of the indicated speakers, there's just a few wee comments I wanted to make myself on the back of that presentation. Obviously, I'd like to welcome the new partnership that's been established here between Council and the Department of Communities to help to improve employability outcomes. And I suppose at this point of declaring interest, I do work in the employability sector. I've always said that if this city deal process leaves behind people from our most disadvantaged communities, then the entire process will have failed. We can't be creating large amounts of jobs through this process, yet the people in the city who need them most can't access them. So this is a welcome development. The fact that there'll be new skills academies, intervention for young people who've been disproportionately affected from COVID, and flexible models of community-based training, all of that is positive. I personally would have liked to have seen a community works program model as part of this current plan. However, there's scope obviously before the final plan to do more work on that and see it, because that was a huge success in the city, and it should be something that could be replicated. I suppose the final point, like job creation is traditionally the remit of the Department of Economy. But we know on this committee our experience in trying to get positive responses and actions coming from that particular department over the last number of years. But it's welcome that Minister Harrigan, the Department of Communities, has stepped forward here and ensured that her department is going to bring forward a partnership scheme for this council. So the first indicated speaker on it was Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Kevin, for the report. The issues facing this council area are well known and well documented. Unfortunately, we're plagued with high unemployment, high economic inactivity and low wage levels, and that leads to poverty and deprivation, which in turn leads to poor health outcomes and poor educational outcomes, which further impacts employment and employability. It's a vicious cycle that needs to be broken once and for all, and improving skills is one element to reversing that trend. It's not a silver bullet. If we fix the skills issue, our problems aren't going to be solved overnight, but we need to build for the future. But this can't be done in isolation. There's no point in making people more employable if there's no job vacancies to fill. And that's why we need to see definitive action from the Economy Minister. We need to see a specific plan from the new Minister, Gordon Lyons, and we need to see strict targets for InvestNI in terms of foreign direct investment and job creation. I know at the last meeting we were on, it was rumoured that somebody from the Department for the Economy would be at September's meeting of this committee. It'll be interesting to see if the new minister attends. He may view this as a lion's den, but we need to see action that results in more jobs and better jobs. In terms of the proposal, we're in broad agreement with it. We think it makes sense that there's a localised approach that can address the specific circumstances of this council area. And in the action plan, what stood out for me and for us was the outcomes. Is anyone better off? And that's what this should be all about. Is this going to make a tangible difference to people's lives? Are they going to be better off financially? Are they going to be better off from a health perspective or from a social perspective? So I think that's what we need to be aiming for. But I've got a question in terms of the funding. So it's £777,000, and that includes 20% for delivery costs. So that works out at about £4 per head of population per annum for this council area. So my question to Kevin, if he can answer it, is how does that compare to the existing programs that this partnership will replace? And do we have any idea how that compares to other council areas throughout the north? Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'll take the other speakers. There's only a short list at a minute, and then we'll bring Kevin back in. So, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you to Kevin and the team for the report. And I think it's important. There's never too much emphasis on the problems we face here. And as the report says, we have the lowest employment rates in the UK, and we now have a very disappointing, the highest youth unemployment rates in the UK as well, which is very, very worrying and alarming. So action on addressing employment in our district is absolutely urgent and needed. So we welcome the emphasis in this, and we welcome the work that's being done. So I have a couple of points that I would like to make, and then I've got a question as well. We've had discussions here in our council recently about the city deal and the overarching economic strategy coming out of Stormont. And look, this is not the first time there's been attempts at partnership with Stormont to address the unemployment issues here and the deprivation issues. And unfortunately, it's been a legacy of absolute failure because there's been many other employment schemes and improved skills schemes, and they haven't delivered. They haven't put a dent in the economic inactivity statistics, and they haven't raised up significantly living standards across our district for the vast majority of people, which is why I and other people share serious concerns about Stormont and what they're going to do in response to COVID and the city deal. But look, you know, there's a lot of jobs that could exist in our district that don't rely on improving skills. I'm thinking about if we actually had a jobs program, or if we had a home building program led by the housing executive, that would employ people who have those skills already. If we were able to put down rail tracks, the people are there that actually can do that. So there are people that can be recruited into nursing jobs and jobs at inside the health service. There's a lot of work that could be provided, but part of the problem has been a lot of the economic models and the skills development models are all premised on a neoliberal model, which is about service in a private sector to try and attract inward investment. And this goes back 20 years. There was many more council jobs 20 years ago. People cleaning our streets, our laneways, and doing much more. A lot of that now is unclear. So I think that we have to change the way we look at government and the provision of jobs, and see government playing a much more central role in public services, getting back to the idea that our public services can be a key job driver as well. So, I think that that's something that will require a turnaround in the way that Stormont operates, and obviously that would have an impact on our council as well. Then the question I have is, look, there's a lot of I think partnership and collaboration is absolutely crucial to all this. But I do notice that the trade union movement are not included in any of the discussions in terms of jobs and skills. Now, in the past, trade unions were, and I think again this indicates the kind of from Stormont the sea change in terms of dismissing trade unions and not thinking that what trade unions have to say about skills, employability, what kind of jobs is important. A previous first minister, we just found out, was meeting with the loyalist paramilitaries, but refusing meetings with trade union leaders. And so I would just, and maybe this is a question not just for the council, but the DFC who are kind of shaping this. Like, can we include conversations with the trade unions? Can we actually have some meetings with the trade union representatives about these plans? And I think that will benefit the plan because you'll get insights coming from the trade unions who represent hundreds of thousands of people who are actually working in the existing jobs and sectors right now. And I think that would be an important to actually include them. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Devaney, and then I'll bring Kevin back.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and just say thanks for bringing the report forward here. And our party has no problem in supporting the recommendation. I think any of us at this meeting has to welcome anything that comes forward with a positive end to, dealing with unemployment, and anything that creates employment across the council area has to be. It's vital that we look at creating employment. I do apologise for getting back to front there. But look, we have talked about retraining through the COVID as we move out of COVID, the right training for those who may lose their jobs and businesses that may go to the wall as we come out of COVID. But as some other people have just mentioned there around the city deal, and I know in my discussions and around the city deal, I think it's vitally important that we have the right education for courses for our young people coming through the education service at the minute. It's vitally important that they're training them up and giving them best advice on jobs that will become available or may be available for them when they come of age and when they go through their education. But it's also vitally important that there is skill-based training there as well. And look, as far as the economy minister, I know we will be touching base once again with our MLAs, Gary Middleton and Tom Buchanan, in relation to the issue that has been raised here about attending the meetings down here. That's an issue we will raise. But happy to support the recommendation coming forward, Chair.
Okay, I have no further indicated speakers, and you can see in the chat box the item's been proposed and seconded. Can I just ask, is there anyone who is opposed to what's before us? Indicate now, please. Okay, take that as unanimous, Stephen. So we'll move on to the next
Do you
item.
want me to come in on any of this stuff, Chair?
Oh,
Or?
apologies, sorry, Kevin. There was a number of questions there. Sorry, yes, I'll bring you back on.
Happy not to, but no, I mean, just one of the points that it's not included in the report, but I mean, as far as I'm aware, I think we're probably the first council to bring the interim labour market partnership paper to our members, and I think that the reason that we are is because of the fact that we have had a kind of head start, not necessarily on the LMP, but a head start in working in this employability arena, and obviously over more than a decade of experience in terms of, first of all, delivery of programs, and then moving from delivery into trying to shape policy and work with others from a partnership perspective. So I think that has stood us in good stead. In relation to the figures, I don't have the data, Councillor Farrell, in relation to how this compares, but I look to see if that's included in any of the other supplementary stuff that we've been working on, and try to come back on that. In terms of how the money has been allocated, there is a formula, and it's around deprivation and that type of thing. And I'll update in relation to the formula itself. In terms of Councillor Harkin's comments around the trade union movement, I think that the beauty of this at the minute is that it is what we've been doing to date is we have an interim LMP. We are looking to, the reason we wanted to get the paper forward is because we know we're going to be under pressure to deliver in this financial year. So we want to be able to maximize our spend this year. So getting that approval today is important. But I think that what the paper is saying is that we're going to move from an interim LMP to a more formalized permanent, not permanent, but to the formal LMP. And so throughout that process, there's the opportunity then to widen that membership out, as far as I'm aware. So we'll certainly look at that, and look at the framework that we've been working on, and hopefully by the autumn, then as we establish those structures. If you see in the action plan, the first phase is around those structures. So we look at that, and clearly we'll be bringing back reports to this committee and to council periodically, at least on a quarterly, if not more, basis. So we'll be able to see how it's evolving on that basis. I think there was 3 questions there, and I'll have to just come back on the data, Chair, because I just don't have it to hand at the minute.
Okay, Councillor Farrell wants to get back on for a quick point just on that, Kevin. So go ahead, Councillor Farrell.
Thanks again, Chair, and thanks, Kevin. I would appreciate if we have information on how much every council is getting. I think it'd be useful, because when we work it out, it's £4 a head per population here. We've got the highest unemployment, the highest economic inactivity. We're at the wrong end of all the league tables. So common sense would dictate that we should get a higher spend per capita. That's my view. That's our view, and I would hope that that's reflected in the figures. But I'd be keen to see them if you can get your hands on them. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes that item. If we could move to item 8 then, in the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, and I think Dean is presenting to this paper.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to update you on the Bloody Sunday Trust plans to mark the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday in January 2022, and to seek your approval to part fund and support the activities. The Trust approached Council about ways they could support the milestone event, the 50th anniversary in January 2022, which is expected to be a major event in the city. To discuss further, it was agreed that Council would attend meetings in relation to the anniversary organised by the Trust in an advisory capacity. The Trust, in conjunction with its partners, aims to deliver a range of activities which will include a large-scale public event to mark this occasion. The main event, Beyond the Silence, is to be held on Sunday, the 30th of January 2022. It's to be a large-scale music and remembrance event, which is expected to attract over 7,000 attendees. The focus will be on the lives of the 14 civil rights marchers who were murdered that day and those wounded, but it will also include a dedication to everyone killed during the conflict. It will seek to build upon the momentous events of June 2010 with the release of the Savile Report and the British Prime Minister's apology. It is envisaged that there will be significant international media presence at the event, along with a number of high-profile attendees. The event will begin in William Street to coincide with the same time the shooting began, with a symbolic event. The families will then proceed to Guildhall Square along a route animated to commemorate the events of that day and its aftermath. Part of this animation will remain in place for a number of days after the event. The majority of the crowd will be gathered in Guildhall Square, Waterloo Place, waiting for the families. The overall costs are estimated to be around £150,000. And the Trust has been successful to date in securing support from the Department of Foreign Affairs for an events coordinator and marketing officer for 1 year. This is a cost of €60,000. This also includes a contribution of €13,000 towards the Behind the Silence event. Other funding applications have been submitted, including an application to the Community Relations Council for a Community Relations Coordinator for the Outreach Programme. The results of these are pending and other applications are planned. Other activity proposed includes the displaying of a painting by the renowned artist Robert Balla, who is keen to loan this significant artwork to display in the city to commemorate this anniversary. The artist has indicated that he would like this to be on display in a prominent position for up to 6 months, and it is proposed that the Guildhall would be the most appropriate civic location for this. It fits well with the significance of the Guildhall as the home of the inquiry and publication of the report, and this display is suitable for direct programming by the Guildhall. A 50th anniversary advisory group has been set up by the Trust with the main objective of creating an inclusive and representative event. The advisory group is comprised of a number of organisations and stakeholders who will oversee the programme of events. The 2022 steering group reports directly to the Trust's 22 programme group. Council has representation on the advisory group in an advisory capacity, which also includes the Department of Foreign Affairs, CCI and Education and Cultural Venues. Officers have been working with the Trust and its partners over the last couple of months to work through possible funding and support options. And the steering group are now at a stage of formalising the ask from Council into the following areas: financial support for the event infrastructure, health and safety and associated event management costs and part support for programming costs, in-kind support of advice and assistance from the various Council departments involved in large-scale event delivery, the placement of the Robert Balla painting in the Guildhall on loan and the associated programming subject to agreement by the artist, possible mayoral support over the main activities and the international conference in June 2022. The requested financial support for the main event includes event management support costs, event infrastructure, health and safety and part support of programming costs. The estimated request for costs from Council is £50,000. This support, if provisionally approved, could be considered via the one-off Major Events Fund, for which the group would need to apply, with 50% awarded in advance and subject to all the relevant backup, etc. It should be noted that the allocated budget for the current year, as members will be aware, has been allocated and therefore additional funds would be required. These costs are estimated and they may reduce, subject to other funding being received. Approval for support in kind from Council to provide advice and assistance to the Trust staff and key suppliers for the organisation and delivery of the main events in January 22, based on the experience of Council officers have of coordinating large-scale events. The artist Robert Balla has kindly agreed to loan the painting at no charge. The proposed location would be outside the main hall in the Guildhall, opposite the Bloody Sunday interpretive area, where it would be on display for up to 6 months from early January 2022. The painting would form part of the Guildhall and Tower Museum's own programming, and costs can be covered within existing Council budgets. The Playhouse are planning to do a production in the Guildhall entitled The White Handkerchief on the 15th of January. This will be led by the Playhouse but will be supported by the Guildhall as part of the 50th anniversary programming. There is also a plan by the Trust to hold an international conference in the Guildhall on the 15th of June, and members, you'll probably have spotted that's a small typo, it should read 2022, which coincides with the anniversary of the Savile Report ruling. The City will host high-profile international speakers to endorse the campaign for truth and justice and Derry's role in conflict transformation. This will also launch the Derry Peace and Conflict International brand. The International Sites of Conscience will host their annual conference in the city for 5 to 6 days over this period. A youth schools conference will platform the voices of young people and their views on international civil rights in 2022. Officers plan to work with the Mayor's office regarding any requests for support for activities. Members, you're asked to consider approving a provisional financial budget for up to a maximum of £50,000 to support the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday via the Major Events Fund. The Trust Haven will continue to source other available funding pots, and the overall potential commitment from Council may reduce. Members should note that the event programme and associated costs will be reflective of public health guidance, in particular in relation to production, health and safety and programming. And members should also note that some of the significant programming pieces once appointed will have a minimum of 50% contractual obligation to be made, even if the activity is unable to go ahead due to COVID restrictions. This obligation could reach 100% commitment if late notice of cancellation is given. That's similar to other events, other event papers that we have brought to you members. If approved, this funding will be subject to Council's existing policy and procedures. Any requests for mayoral support will be subject to discussions with the Mayor and his office. Members, it's recommended that you consider approving the provisional financial commitment subject to an application to the Major Events Fund as set out above, subject to confirmation of funding from partners, and note the contents of the report. It's also recommended, members, that you consider approving the provision of in-kind advice and assistance from the various council departments to enable the Trust to deliver the event. And members, you're asked to approve the locating of the Robert Balla painting in the Guildhall for the period outlined and associated programming.
Okay, thanks, Aideen. I have a list of speakers here, but just I suppose indicate I'm happy to propose this item. So the first indicated speaker is Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Aideen. Bloody Sunday was one of the seminal events in Irish history, and it happened on the streets of our city. The 50th anniversary of that terrible day is 6 months away, and it's right and it's proper that Council makes a financial contribution to support events to remember and to commemorate the atrocity. 14 innocent sons of Derry were murdered by British troops whilst campaigning for civil rights, and their families have campaigned for justice ever since. Justice that this current Tory government is intent on avoiding and intent on frustrating. Its amnesty proposals are an affront to victims, an affront to common decency, and they're an attempt to protect British soldiers from prosecution. They want the easy way out. They want to brush it all under the carpet, and their devious plans to circumvent justice cannot be allowed to happen. The SDLP is happy with all aspects of this recommendation, and I personally am happy to second. Thank you.
Sorry, the next indicated speaker is Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and not on the committee, so I'm glad that it has been proposed and seconded before I've come in. But I just would like to begin by putting on record my party, Sinn Féin's continued support for the Bloody Sunday families, and indeed for the Higgerty family following the crushing decision by the PPS just 2 weeks ago in relation to the prosecutions of Soldier F. We do believe that that is the outworking of a Tory policy that was very evident in their discussions of vexatious claims. But in relation to this report, I, like others in this virtual chamber, probably have met with the Bloody Sunday Trust to discuss the programmes of events that they have planned. And I have to comment that it is a powerful programme. It is really impressive the amount of work that they have already put into it, and it will have huge international interest. It was, as Rory has outlined, a hugely significant day in our history, and indeed has shaped our future and where we are today. And as such, we absolutely should be supporting it. A tremendous amount of work has already gone into the programme, as outlined by Aideen. I look forward to it. As a city and district, we should be, it's only right that we are contributing financially towards it. we are on record as a council corporately of supporting the Bloody Sunday families and their campaign for truth and justice, and as such we should be supporting this paper as it comes before us, and contributing financially if that is what is required. So I'm happy to put on record Sinn Féin's support for the paper. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Aideen, for the report. And as others have said, Boris Johnson's and the British government, their attempt to, as they say, draw a line under events here in the north is a disgrace and should be rejected. This is not about helping people here who've been campaigning for decades for truth and justice and for their loved ones. It's not to help them. This is about protecting the crimes of the British state that were committed here in the streets of Derry, on the Shankill, Ballymurphy, and in many other places and at different times over the last 50 years. And it's not just crimes that they've committed here. The British government wants to draw a line under this because they continue to do similar things all around the world. And they don't want to be held accountable for it. And that goes from the top brass in the military to the politicians that make political decisions to send armies into different countries and places where they should not be going. And Bloody Sunday, as everybody else has said, I mean, our hearts go out to the Bloody Sunday families and others who've campaigned and been forced to campaign doggedly for 50 years for truth, for justice, for the attempt to hold people accountable, and the PPS decision was a disgrace. This is Bloody Sunday changed Derry history. It changed history in the north of Ireland. It changed Irish history. It was an international event and is now part of international history. But it's not something that's in the past because there is not yet justice for the families. There's not yet justice for the Bloody Sunday campaigners. So we like everyone else, agree that on the 50th anniversary, it should be properly marked in our city. There should be discussions. There should be opportunities for people to learn about Bloody Sunday and what's happened over the last 50 years, and that this is also part of the attempt to try and hold the British government accountable for what they have done here, and their attempt, and hold them accountable for their attempt to get out of accountability in the ongoing campaign for truth and justice. So we want to see as much attention in January brought to this as possible, and hopefully people from across Ireland and internationally will join us in doing that. So we welcome Council's involvement in helping to facilitate that, and in as many ways as possible, and through as many organisations and entities and groups as possible. I do have a question, which is maybe I see that the council has an advisory role in the Bloody Sunday Trust, and that is, some people have continued to march since the Saville report and didn't see that as an end, and that march has continued, and obviously there's differences of opinion. Some political parties haven't marched around Bloody Sunday for many years. Other families and other campaigners continued to march, and I would imagine this year's march, given it's the 50th anniversary, will likely be bigger in recent years, and be organised on an all-party basis, and we'll have international people coming, and some families have raised concerns to me, and indeed others, other political parties, about worried that there might be a potential clash at 410, given that there is a plan to have an event at William Street at 410, and that might run into the march. And obviously this is something I think we all want to avoid, because we all share the same goal in terms of commemorating what happened on Bloody Sunday, but also continuing the campaign for justice. So if I could get a response on that, and I think that this is something as the council we should be, and others, looking at making sure that there isn't any problems around that. Thank you.
Okay, next indicated speaker is Alderman Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for letting me on. Well, first of all, we won't be in a position to support these recommendations today because of 5.1. We obviously need more info on how this event will be inclusive. You know, based on our history and our city and legacy and how we move on as a people, I think it's very important that we find how we can be inclusive, considering the many families who suffered in this area, like not even including our Strabane area. We have over 200 here in the city alone who lost their lives during the Troubles of all walks of life. So we are going down the route of equality. So we would be obviously interested in how an equality impact assessment would pan out in this. In-kind advice, obviously, we have no issue whatsoever with in-kind advice. That's the norm for council with many different groups going forward. The Robert Ballot painting as well is another one which there could be issues with it being in the Guildhall. Is it appropriate in the Guildhall as a neutral space? And again, you know, how do we incorporate or as a council corporate, how do we make sure that we are in a position where we are including all the victims of the Troubles in our city and district? And as I say, I have the stats for our city, and to be honest, I don't think we see enough of it to remind people of how many from all walks of life lost their lives. This was not a one religion thing or a dominance of one religion over another. There was a lot of people lost their lives from all religions, including foreigners. So it's very important as a corporate body that this council looks seriously into getting involved with one group out of the fact that, you know, and at the end of the day, Bloody Sunday Trust are entitled to seek funding and seek advice and help. But as a council corporate, I think we have a lot more work to do. So as this stands today, we'll not be able to support the recommendations going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Chair. I have no problem with people marking the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Everyone should be able to mark such significant events freely. However, I do question the request for assistance of the funding of the specific event to council for the sum of £50,000. I note that it could be considered under the major events funds, which is already had been allocated for the current year, which would then require additional monies from an already tight budget. 50,000 is almost 1% of our rates budget, a budget which many members wanted to reduce to 0%, yet now back requests such as this, at a time when council is experiencing staffing issues in some departments, which has already begun to affect services. Unlike Councillor Duffy, I haven't been supplied with info as to what is planned with the requested sum of £50,000. And I'm sure all members would like more information in making such a decision. Councillor Harkin makes very interesting points about the fractious nature Bloody Sunday commemorations have become, and should corporate council become involved, and at what aspect? When any sum of funding is applied for it is scrutinised thoroughly. This application should be of no difference. And Chair, I have a proposal, but if you want to go on, I'll put it in the box here. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, do that, Alderman Guy. So the next is Councillor Raymond Barr.
Thank you, Chair. Bloody Sunday was quite simply an atrocity sanctioned at the highest level by the British government, carried out by the government's armed forces. A deliberate massacre designed to suppress the justified demand for equality and civil rights. This was a slaughter of innocents which impacted greatly on the city and the island of Ireland and reverberated throughout the world and received condemnation throughout the world and still does. And as one who witnessed the attack on the marchers and as one who spoke with one of the victims shortly before his murder, I welcome the report and wholeheartedly support the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Donny.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, look, like previous speakers, Bloody Sunday, it was a calculated, cold-blooded, deliberate murder of innocent, unarmed non-combatants, and this significant anniversary needs to be marked. And you know, much has been said about Boris Johnson and the Tories, but history has shown us that when it comes here in Ireland, the British injustice, subsequent British governments, including Labour governments, were all equally complicit in covering up their crimes in this part of Ireland. I'm happy to support the proposal, Chair.
Okay, and finally, Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And I'm just thinking back, you know, to listen to some of the comments about, you know, commemorate and celebrate. And I think the negative issue that we had when we asked for funding to support the 100th anniversary of the formation of the state. But we are where we are on this one. And I've listened intently there to some of the comments in around the amnesty. And look, really coming across from Republicans once again that this protects British soldiers. When I look at that amnesty, I see it protects members of the IRA, all those Republican groups and all others who carried out atrocities across Northern Ireland, and it sends out a very, very negative message to all those innocent victims. And our party has put on the record many, many times that wrong is wrong. It's never right. And I'm sure the members of the Bloody Sunday families who had loved ones killed on Bloody Sunday would agree with my comments that everyone is entitled to some justice and answers of who murdered their loved ones and why they were murdered. And that's why, Chair, I just wanted to come in with those comments that, look, the innocent victim here is the one that I'm thinking of. And thanks, Chair, for allowing me in.
Okay, Alderman Hussey has indicated, and then we'll do the proposal.
My issue is on 50th anniversaries. If you wanted to go ahead with, I think Alderman Guy said he wanted to come back in again there, but mine is slightly different than the Bloody Sunday issue.
Okay, well, we'll deal with the proposal now, and then we'll come back to you, Derek. So can we get the proposal on the screen, please?
I have it in the chat box here now. Apologies, Chair. I should have sent this earlier, but my internet was down. So,
Are we able to get that on the screen? Whoever's dealing with the technical side, or? Okay, while we're waiting for that, Alderman Guy, do you want to speak to this particular proposal? And do you have a seconder first?
thanks, Chair. So basically, just a continuation on of what I was saying there.
Before you speak on it, is there a seconder for this?
I'll second it, Alderman Devaney.
Okay, Alderman Guy, go ahead now.
So basically, continuing on just from where I'd left off before I talked about the proposal, basically just to allow people who haven't the knowledge around the events that are planned and to scrutinise like we do with everything, whenever vast sums of money are discussed, I believe that it should be pushed into the appropriate working group just to discuss to let us hear firsthand at what events are planned and so on, and where the 50,000, if it requires that amount, is planned to be spent. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Duffy's indicated to speak on the proposal. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to put on record that our party won't be supporting the proposal. The paper that is in front of us gives in detail the programme in terms of what work is ongoing, and around the amount of money that has been asked for at this stage. Don't feel at this point that it needs to go to a working group to delay it any further. We have had similar proposals come from other groups, from other areas where we have identified funding. I don't think this should be any different. We won't be supporting this proposal.
Okay, thank you. Aideen's indicated she wants to come in for a bit of clarification. So, Aideen, bring you in now.
Yeah, just to a point of clarification there. So the ask here in the paper is to, I suppose, make provision for an indicative sum of financial support, but it's to accept an application into the Major Events Fund. So that would be assessed by officers, and generally we would discuss those applications in the members' working group, where there'd be full detail on the proposal that would come in. So there is a route and there is a process for detail to come in to members. If you're happy enough with that as an approach, it just maybe members might have been clear in the report that that's what they ask is. It's so the part of the major events process will involve more detail on the proposal, and that's probably why the paper here didn't go into detail, because you're just being asked to accept an application into the Major Events Fund, but obviously to make provision for the up to £50,000 in that.
Okay, Aideen, thanks for that. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair. Aideen basically beat me to it. We have a process that exists already, and Alderman Guy's proposal is part of Council's process anyway. So I think we just let the process run as is.
Okay, I have no further indicated speakers. Is there anything, Alderman Guy, you want to conclude on before we put this to a vote?
Chair, I'm going to pull, if you don't mind. I'm going to retract the proposal there. What Aideen has told me, I'm happy enough with. So if you'd let me remove that, if it's all right with Morris, sir.
No problem, Chair. From Morris here, Alderman Devaney. If that's his wish to withdraw it.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's grand. We'll consider that withdrawn. So we now need to come back to the substantive proposal itself. Sorry, Derek indicated to come in before we took this to a final vote. So Derek, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of this committee, and you're referring to the 50th anniversary of an extremely traumatic event. Can I refer to the 50th anniversary of another extremely traumatic event? And that was the murder of the first member of the Ulster Defence Regiment Conspicuous Gallantry Cross, which occurred at the 50th anniversary of that, will be taking place in 3 weeks' time. That murder occurred in Clady, which is part of my own Derg electoral area. Subsequent to that, 252 members of the regiment lost their lives, 191 in service, and 61 after they had left the regiment and had returned to civilian life. I feel that this is an occasion that needs to be marked. I know that the Regimental Association will be commemorating the death of the first member of the Ulster Defence Regiment, CGS, namely Winston Donnell, who was known to myself. as indeed were many members of the regiment who died, including one of the 4 greenfinches who actually taught.
Councillor Alderman Hussey, listen, if there's a particular issue on this item that you propose to bring to this committee, then you
There
should
is
put a proposal. So can you?
no, Chair, I cannot put in a proposal, but I can make a suggestion to the committee that the 50th anniversary of the start of the attrition on the Ulster Defence Regiment could be recognised by this council.
Councillor Donnelly has indicated.
Chair, look, I think that we're being led astray here. You know, what Alderman Hussey is looking to do is propose that we, mark an issue of combatants. There's been combatants on all sides, and this is clouding the issue here, Chair. We're dealing here with unarmed non-combatants, and I think to go into commemorating armed groups, whether they be UDR or RAR or other, is doing a disservice to this issue. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to bring Councillor Duffy on just before I make a ruling on this particular issue. So.
Chair, completely agree with Councillor Donnelly. I actually think that Alderman Hussey has been a wee bit mischievous here and trying to take things off course. This is a paper in relation to the events around Bloody Sunday and the commemorative events to mark the 50th anniversary of that. I think if Alderman Hussey wishes to bring this forward as a proposal, as a motion, he should submit it as a motion, which would be right and proper. And if he wishes to do it that way, we can deal with it there at full council. Thank you.
I agree with that particular issue, Councillor Hussey, or Alderman Hussey, apologies. If you want to bring this forward to full council, you're more welcome to do so, but I'm not accepting this proposal and this particular committee. So at the end to conclude on that particular issue and take this back to the original paper, and given that some have indicated they are opposed, I think, Steve, we need to take that to a vote.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So we're voting on the recommendations in the paper. So Councillor Jason Barr.
For.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
For.
Councillor Shauna Cusack.
For.
Alderman Morris Delaney.
Against.
Councillor Gary Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Rory Farrell.
For.
Alderman Darren Guy.
Against.
Councillor Sean Hargan.
For.
Councillor Conor Heaney.
For.
Councillor Patricia Lowe.
For.
And Alderman David Ramsey.
Against.
Thank you. Chair, that's 8 for and 3 against.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. So that's passed, and we'll now move on. So that concludes the items open for discussion, and we're now in the items 9 to 11, which are open for information. So and Kevin is speaking to these, if we could briefly run through these, and people can indicate if there's any of the 3 items that they want to speak on.
Chair, if anybody has any specific questions on the 3 papers, I'm happy to field those questions. They're in there for information. So at this stage.
Okay, fair enough. And people indicating in items 9 to 11. Stephen, can I just clarify, do we need proposers and seconds for these 3 papers, or are they just as they're for
No, we don't, Chair. They're just for information. So
okay, fair enough. Councillor Hargan has indicated for one of the papers. I'll bring him on, then a number of others are coming through. Go ahead, Councillor Hargan.
Chair, it was my understanding we were moving on, so I wanted to propose that we bring out 2 of the issues that are in confidential and the public domain. One is the Lisna Galvin site discussion, and the second is the free ports. I don't really understand why either are in confidential. If we can get input on that from legal counsel or from yourself.
Well, Stephen, can you deal with that issue?
Yeah, I'm hoping Philip's on the line as well. But I mean, certainly in relation to the free ports, because there's a company named within the amount, it's commercially sensitive. Just that's all. There's no particular issue. It's just because there's a commercial company named there. And in relation to listening to Evans, because there's legal advice, so it's within what's the term? It's the legal advice is for members only at this stage.
Okay, so that's the explanation, Councillor Harkins. So next indicated speaker was Councillor Farrell.
Well, before Councillor Harkins' bombshell there, I would just like to comment on item 10 and 11. I think those are two very positive news stories about what our council is doing to enhance the skills of the citizens that we represent. It's a positive news story, and I hope that our labour market partnership bears similar fruit. But great news, well done.
Okay, Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment too on 10 and 11, but particular item 10, the figures are to be welcomed, and it reflects the growing talent and the pull of software development, and hopefully that'll bode well for the future. So just to welcome both those reports. Thank you.
I have no further indicated speakers on those items, so if we can take the three grouped as noted, and we'll now move to confidential. So if the technicians could end the broadcast, please.
And I'll propose, Chair Alderman Devaney, that we move into confidential.
Apologies. Thanks for that. Do we have a seconder for that?
Seconded. Chair Jason Barr.
Okay. If we could now